Our guest today is Preeti Vyas, founder chairwoman of Vyas Giannetti Creative. What Vyas Giannetti Creative is, what it stands for.
What is Vyas Giannetti Creative is really, it's a brand, strategy, design and communication consultancy. Help businesses and brands navigate different business scenarios. We say good design is good business. When we go out and talk to the market, it's a very different view of it. So that becomes our job to honest sort of observers, analyzers. I was asked by Kumar Mangalam Birla to do the logo for Aditya Birla Group. It's very important to understand the DNA because the design is their expression. Okay, so here's a key stakeholder. Aditya Birla Group logos have never been the typical minimal logos. Okay, always has a certain grandeur to it. Every large business needs to engage with so many different entities. Everything that we do is somehow touching your life, like every few seconds.
Welcome to this new episode of Against the Grain. Our guest today is Preeti Vyas, founder chairwoman of Vyas Giannetti Creative. Preeti is a designer before anything else, a creative soul who became an entrepreneur, a brand strategist, a painter, a writer, and a board director. As the founder and chairwoman of Vyas Giannetti Creative, Preeti has spent more than 30 years helping organizations discover who they are. Preeti, welcome to the show and tell us about what Vyas Giannetti Creative is and what it stands for and how it is, what's the precise niche it occupies and how it is different from, say, the common or garden advertising agency or publicity outfit.
Thank you, Sujeet. Thanks for having me. And so what is Vyas Giannetti Creative is really, it's a brand, strategy, design and communication consultancy. Okay. What this means is that we help businesses and brands navigate different business scenarios, different situations in the marketplace. There are businesses which want to diversify, businesses which want to define their purpose statement, businesses that are looking at a different kind of business scenario in which they need to talk to different kind of cohorts of consumers, of customers. So there are all various situations which clients are going through, and one of the things that need to do is to fix the brand positioning. Okay, so how we are different is that we see what we do, which is a creative business, but we see what we do as a management tool. Okay, we say good design is good business. If you've approached your client from the perspective of sharing their vantage point to understand what is that they want to do, they are not looking at prettifying anything. They're looking to be successful in whatever business they outline for themselves. Our job is to help them get there from a brand perspective. Okay, so when you do that well, it adds to what we call your ROI. And ROI could be in actual financial terms. It could be in terms of perception, like your brand equity goes up. But there is always a wonderful ROI, which is the end result of a process like this, if it is done well. And how we are different is that we do it very well. And how do we do it very well is that we really take this aspect of immersing ourselves into the client's business very seriously. We understand where they're coming from, where the world is, who they want to talk to, who are the customers, who are the consumers, who do they see as their competition, and also challenge them that you think you are this, but actually when we go out and talk to the market, it's a very different view of you. So that becomes our job to be an honest sort of observers, analyzes. And actually, from all of this process, the idea is to distill the core truth of what your brand should be. What your DNA is, what you want to stand for. It should be something which you can believe in, because it can't be something you're importing just for the purpose of making a pretense of what you're. That never works. So we identify what your DNA is, what your competitors are doing, and what you can stand out for. Okay, so we aid that process, and we outline that very, very clearly for them. Once that is agreed upon, then we create what we call a brand archetype. Okay, so once you know what your archetype is, then it's just easier for us to visualize it, for us to actually put a lot of tonality to it, tone of visuals, tone of voice. What is going to be that share of someone's mind that you want to occupy as a brand. And then when we do all of that is when the visual part starts. When the communication, what we call creativity in a sort of a typical zone, which is that, they make designs. Of course we do designs, but backed by this kind of a process, this intelligence, what we call it. We call it brand intelligence, So that, to me, is the crucial differentiator. And this process we call designomics. Okay, so this is something which we own. This is our proprietary, sort of process of thought and
the term designomics.
Designomics. So design creativity is absolutely the crucial thing. But when it is funneled through this kind of research and strategy, is really when you get a lot of creative intelligence. Which therefore is poised for success far more than otherwise if you just randomly did things. So that's really where we are different. I'm not saying others are not doing it, but I think that we have that, that process very astutely in place.
Can you say to some extent that you sort of pioneered this? So how was the scene before Vyas Giannetti Creative came into the scene? Is it something that already existed? There was a crowded field of companies doing exactly what you are doing, or you kind of innovated? You produced something that didn't exist in quite this form.
Well, it was not crowded when we started. Okay, when I started as a rookie, honestly, there weren't even any design outfits. Very few. If I really think very hard, I might find.
So it wasn't a thing. I mean, there were advertising agents. Yeah. And you started life?
I started my life. So I graduated as a designer from National Institute of Design. And I realized back then that although I went to a great institute, and I'm really grateful for NID and what it gives you. In terms of a worldview, you are not just a pretty fire, you are really a game changer, life changer, so that I'm so glad for that, because it helped in intellectualizing the process, and gave us a much larger purpose than just putting color to paper. Okay, so but that was not enough. I still had to learn my creative craft, my creative ideation, which is really what happened when I went and worked in an ad agency with her. Very lucky for me, with an icon like Mohammed Khan. And Mohammed really was a true creative director, in the sense that whilst he might have been a copywriter, he actually understood creativity, and that is a little difficult thing to explain. It's one of those je ne sais quoi moments. You learn by osmosis. It's hard. There's no textbook that will tell you that. You need to see references. You need to see examples of that, and of course, you need to work with somebody like that, and that really helped me. Also, the craft, the creative craft, be it advertising, be it design, So that is something which was a learning curve outside of the institute for me. So at that point in time, advertising agencies existed, and they were great. So really wonderful. Design, no, nothing. And this kind of design that we're doing now was honestly, it was many years later that started to get acknowledged, but it certainly wasn't a thing back in the day. In fact, interestingly, when my advertising stint was, it's never really over. I mean, that's still very much part of what I do. Communication is really something that I do. But in terms of brand design, when I was asked by Kumar Mangalam Birla to do the logo for Aditya Birla Group, okay, and of course the entire brand system, that was the first time an international brand design agency was called to do the Tata's brand as well. In fact, I know this because I was asked by them to come and help them. At which point in time, of course, I couldn't because I was already working with Aditya Birla Group, which is just freshly formed.
So this international company that was invited, was it doing something similar to what
Yes. So
VGC then ended up doing? Or was it?
Yes. So I think internationally these processes existed. And design was a fairly mature industry in the West, So this was a UK-based agency which was invited, and a very well-known one, One of their branding gods was, a couple of them actually, were heading this agency, Wolf Collins, and they were invited to it. And I would have loved to have assisted them. I mean, they were really looking for an Indian designer to assist, and then thereafter, once the gods have gone, then I would just carry forward the sort
clean
of
up after the gods. Okay.
But I found my own way. I was very clear that was the process, regardless of them being there or not. That did not ignite my thinking. It was just that I was already very steeped into this kind of thinking and realized that a lot of the thinking which was used in advertising was not used in design, and I wanted to implement that, and we did.
So you had arrived at this insight independently, and it
oh, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
And this was just the catalyst, Tata inviting these people.
It was a kind of a coincidence,
It was a coincidence.
So this is to answer your question, that was I the first one? I would have to say yes. I was really,
That's
in that sense, a pioneer.
You were a pioneer, at least in India, for this sort of thing.
Yes.
So, I think you just mentioned Kumar Mangalam Birla. So, I think you have done, one of your major clients, as far as I know, is the Aditya Birla Group. So, can you go into some detail into what exactly you did for the Aditya Birla Group? Because that will illustrate these ideas and make them concrete,
Yeah.
What design is, what you call designomics actually is, and what it achieves for the client. In this case, the Aditya Birla Group.
Sure, it's a long story. I'll try to keep it
Please.
brief.
No, take your time.
So I was approached by Kumar to do the brand mark.
By Kumar, you mean Kumar Mangalam Birla?
Yeah, and I had done some work for them before, and so the companies were existed, like Grasim and so on. They had been around for the longest time, and many of them were listed companies, and the profile of the group was largely in commodities. Okay, and so when Kumar asked me to do the logo for the group, which was when his father had passed away, and what he wanted to do was herd the companies which his father had launched under one umbrella brand. So it's a virtual company. I can't call it a company. It's a virtual, what should I call it? An umbrella sort of
a virtual corporate entity of some sort.
And with very powerful, businesses which were already there, holding company of these entities which were listed and doing very well. Okay, so we as a group, it kind of tiptoed its way into this zone. You understand? These giants were there, these other companies. And so we created a brand mark. First of all, when I mentioned the client's DNA, it's very important to understand the DNA, because the design is their expression. Okay, so here's a key stakeholder. And that's why Aditya Birla Group logos have never been the typical minimal logos. Okay, it always has a certain grandeur to it. There is a certain colorfulness to it. There's a richness to it. There's a texture to it. So it comes from that. It comes from our immersion with the key stakeholders, and in this case was of course Kumar. And so that's the brand that we appropriated. It's been through multiple changes since then, without losing the core essence of being a sun brand, because Aditya means sun, and so therefore it's always been a sun, and we kind of moved it around later in the years. So when we started this, my team and I sort of encouraged him to look at a more studied approach of who our customers were, who our key stakeholders, key consumers would be for a brand like this. And at that point in time, I think what we had found was that it was worth investigating the world of investors, because it was sort of outlined as one of the key categories of cohorts to be addressed. Okay, because a stakeholder, shareholder community is what invests in your companies, your investor community, your financial institutions, And for Kumar, that was primary at that point in time. Now, of course, that has become much wider, and so we did. We instituted, formal research across institutional financial zones as well as retail financial zones in India and abroad. And what were we researching? We were researching brand Birla, not brand Aditya Birla. It hadn't yet been born. Okay.
Right.
And it was interesting to see what came out. So what came out was it was a large entity, which was fine. Indian entity. It's perceived as a very Indian brand, which we were very okay with back in the day. Very okay with. 30 odd years ago, we didn't see that it's a made in India kind of a brand. We did not think it was a position of weakness. We said that's who we are, and we'll own it. But what was not good was that we were not seen as a company which was well known. We didn't speak enough about who we are. Our businesses did not, and we felt that the financial community would therefore see us as not transparent, not dynamic, because we don't communicate. We're doing wonderful things, but people are not understanding that we're doing all these things, right? So therefore, some of these perceptions had to change. Image had to change in order to attract the right kind of talent, the right kind of collaborators. That you name it. Every large business needs to engage with so many different entities. So you
perhaps investors as well.
100% investors. So and you want to be the first port of call. Preference, the preferred partner, the preferred, place to go work at, and so on. So that gave us what ground zero was, and what we had to, where the needle should move, and that's really when we wanted to figure out how we should project ourselves as a brand to the outside world. So we had a mark, and we, of course, like all brand design, logo systems, we created a whole battery of systems which should be used, in urban centers, in rural centers, certain kind of, like for example, cement bags and so on and so forth. So all the brand systems had to be worked out, and for an entity like Aditya Birla Group, it's a big exercise, But we did it rather well because we understood India very well, unlike some of the international players at that point in time did not understand India. So we wanted to make it foolproof even in a small town. For example, we standardized certain colors. We worked with paint companies to identify what a certain color should be, so that if you ordered that, you get exactly the same one, no matter if it's in village or wherever, things like that. So we thought it through. So the idea is always that you think of a big idea, big thing, the big concept, but you must walk down the detail. You must know where the details and who's going to be in charge of the details. So you work backward from making it foolproof as much as you can, So that was the brand identity part. But now it is the corporate identity of what we want to stand for, given the fact that we now have this picture of what we are seen as a Birla, but what will Aditya Birla bring to the table. And what we then identified was that we're now exited license Raj. Okay, we're now in an open economy situation. We have been as a Birla as a brand has been very much seen as a partner to to the freedom movement and so on. So we've been very woven into the history
ethos
of India,
India.
you know. And we are also one of the first large industry houses. In fact, Tata Birlas, you know, everybody would say it in the same breath. So
Yes.
Tata Birlas, you know. But now there is an Aditya Birla, and what is it that we want to say? What's the claim we want to make? And for us, it became quite obvious that, you know, what Aditya Birla had done was that he had actually established a very robust footprint around the world, not just in India. You know, so he was one of the first pioneers who had gone out and, you know, created not marketing offices, but, you know, production factories and so on, you know, in various parts of the world. And so we said, let's seize the moment. And so therefore, what we positioned the brand at that point in time was, we're taking India to the world. Okay. Now, individual companies will sell their products, like a cement company will sell cement product, or a fertilizer company will sell that, or a textile company will do whatever. So as a corporate brand, what is it that you want to stand for is a higher purpose.
Right.
Okay, so that's how we differentiated. And so then Aditya Birla Group, the first logo was, let's say you have a group company like a Hindalco on top, and there's a sun logo, and then there was a very gentle just endorsement that Aditya Birla Group. But when we did this whole exercise, the brand transformed at a corporate level. You know, the perception level started to change quite a lot. And I don't think one can say that the logo or the communication itself did it. Of course not. It's the way the corporate also behaved, the way the key stakeholders were perceived to behave. In this case, it would be all the leadership, right?
But are you suggesting that this branding exercise had some sort of a impact on how the corporate started behaving post branding? So it's like a kind of dynamic interaction between the branding exercise and the corporate personality.
It is a symbiotic interaction.
Correct.
And when you do something which actually engages the world, but also engages your own people, you know, that is really a wonderful high. And you can, if you leverage it well, you can then use it to convert everyone in your organization into a brand ambassador.
So in that sense, it was not merely a cosmetic exercise. It was transformational.
It was transformational. In fact,
in more ways than one.
More ways than one. In fact, when we did that, I clearly remember that the group itself had lots of communication modules to talk about this, why they were doing this, and so on. You know, so it's like taking people along.
So it was like a massive internal churning also.
Yes, and you know, all brands, when they do shifts, it's very vital that they also talk internally to their own people, because what's a company? It's people, you know, and they need to also believe in what you're doing, and they need to be seen as vision and mission partners in whatever the group has outlined for itself, you know. And of course you have to talk to the rest of the world, you know. But rest of the world in an entity like an Aditya Birla Group is many universes. You know, so it's okay for attracting key talent is one. As I mentioned, you know, it could be financial institutions, it would be policy makers, influencers. You know, so it's a very broad canvas that they have to operate within. You know. So that's what we did. So we then positioned them as taking India to the world, and it was just a sense of pride. We are seen as an Indian brand, and we want to own that even more, and we want to back it up with work that, you know, to live up to that. You know, so I think, and true to the philosophy, the group has always endeavored to live that. It's just not been an eyewash, you know, because I've been associated with them for so long. And then came the second phase, where we said, now we've taken India to the world, what should we say? And and then many more businesses, some of them were consumer-facing businesses. So at that point in time, we actually moved into the zone of, I don't think people know what, you know, in fact, you know, Kumar said that people know us, but they don't know what we do. So then we moved to a positioning of, you know, big in your life, you know, because almost everything that we do is somehow touching your life like every few seconds, you know. Like for example, you're wearing black, you know, so this carbon black, you know. If I'm holding, you know, my laptop, it's got aluminium. Or watching television, it's got aluminium. Or I'm driving a car, the rubber is most likely the carbon black which they have made, you know. Things like that. So we outlined all these things and we spoke about that. And so for some time then the positioning was, you know, big in your life because of just the sheer might of, you know, touch points that we created. So that was one positioning that we had. And the brand mark also went through a refresh, you know, not a departure but a refresh, you know. And that's when we realized that when we did research that now the Aditya Birla Group brand was itself so powerful, it became a super brand in just about a decade. Okay, it's not a 100-year-old brand, right?
No.
Like a Tata's is. Birlas are, but Aditya Birla was only a 10-year-old brand at that point in time. And then we just moved it to, you know, refreshed it. And then when I don't know if you remember what I mentioned earlier, which is that, you know, we first had individual companies because they were the heroes up there, and then we came in as a strap line, a little endorser. It changed, you know, because there's so much equity built into Aditya Birla, so it led from the top, you know. So it was the shift was just a small shift, but it was just a giant statement for a corporate entity to make, you know. So that was the second phase, and thereafter, you know, there was lots happened, right? COVID happened and all of that. And I think that forced people, corporates, you know, everybody was thinking about what are we, what do we want to become, what do we want to own, what's our purpose, you know. And
but before we come to COVID, now you talked about the massive transformation that was brought about in the Aditya Birla Group and the companies under it through this whole interactive process between between the branding exercise and the kind of internal churning that you mentioned. So, but were the number crunchers also happy? Were the people who looked at bottom lines and top lines, and did this transformation? It must have translated into something that number crunchers also found interesting.
So it's in that sense, it's not so linear because individual companies.
No, it's not linear, but there must be a concomitant.
Of course,
yes.
Because what they do is they have. You know, measurement parameters,
Correct.
which through research and so on. So for a brand like ours, there are two ways of, like at a corporate level, there are two ways of, you know, measuring it. Is that, you know, how well is it known by whom? What is it associated with? And also, you know, what leverage does it carry in terms of the impact in various corridors of influence and power and so on. Okay, and we only saw it rise. Now, individual companies draw from that, from the benefit of the corporate brand. You understand? So when a corporate brand succeeds, okay, when an individual company goes in and says, "I belong to this corporate entity," immediately a lot of trust and you know, all the equity that has been sort of, you know, which has become an asset at the group level, gets translated down into the individual entity level as well. So, I mean, now there's even many companies do it, and Aditya Birla Group has also started to do. It's a royalty. You know, some of the companies actually paying back for the usage of Aditya Birla Group as a brand. You know, but there was a third phase that the group went through post-COVID, and which is the third positioning, which is currently happening, coming from certain amount of soul searching that typically would happen, you know, when you have a big disruptor like COVID, which was identifying that what we are doing is we do business with ethics and we do business for inclusive profit, which is people, planet, and the corporate. Everybody profits from it, you know. So it's
just to clarify, by we you mean the Aditya Birla Group? Yeah,
because I'm so closely associated.
You're identifying. You're not talking about VGC. You're talking about Aditya Birla.
I'm talking about Aditya Birla Group, but VGC is very much
part of the family.
When I say we, it's
interchangeable.
It's interchangeable in this case. So force for good. So we said this is really what we are when we are talking about inclusive prosperity. then we should now become what we anyway are doing and put a line to our philosophy, tagline, so to speak. So that's the third phase. And we also, the brand mark also went through a change, So it's a 3-decade-year-old relationship.
So this journey from NID in Ahmedabad to Muhammad Khan's advertising agency to finally VGC and this...
There was in between a Trikaya phase as well, which was a very good agency.
Which was another one or two agencies.
But I always did my own design studio work. I had a small studio. But
even when you were employed by these people?
Even when. It's only now, in 30 years I count only because of VGC as what it is. Designomics is a philosophy, so it transformed. Through all of the learning that I had before, it sort of, transformed into that one way of thinking. So
that design is primary. What can you explain?
Designomics is it's economics and design. So it's the economics from the design and the design thinking and the creative craft that we bring to the table is put through the lens of the economic, requirements for any corporate to have. So what is the benefit in terms of what are the economic benefits
that would accrue
derive, from this process? Okay, is really what we are all about.
Right.
So that is central to everything we do as VGC. And I was Designomics actually then launched as a knowledge platform, and I was that's an interesting story if you want to hear.
Sure.
Is that I was part of the India Design Council at one point in time, and it did an MOU with the Japanese government to bring their good design mark, which is the mark the award to various design, like product design or all sorts of things, which is an award given to them, to the businesses and to their whatever this that they've created for customers, consumers, and all that. It could be automobiles, it could be increasing. When it started was a long time ago, but now it's become a much bigger sort of platform to award. Interestingly, Sujeet, 80 or more % of Japanese are aware of that.
Okay.
Because if you're going to a supermarket and if that has been given an award, it's put down on the packaging.
Right.
That's how important.
And it matters to people.
It matters to people. I was very moved by the fact that this was introduced by the Japanese government in the mid-50s. Can you imagine? A good design award was instituted not by designers, not by corporates, but the Japanese government, because they realized that the power of design is huge.
It's huge.
Okay. That if their country, which had actually become so impoverished after the Second World War, the devastation that happened, to rise out of that, we have to compete with the best in the world. And the only way we can do it is by having our products being superlatively designed. Okay. Sure, they started with copying things and all of that, if you remember back in the day.
Yes.
But now they are a force unto themselves.
They are a force unto
and the enlightened, I'm so impressed with the fact that they understood, they were so enlightened about the fact that design is a game changer, a life changer.
Right.
And they encouraged businesses to have in-house design studios. So when we went to Tokyo, as a delegation, we went to all of these businesses because they all had in-house design studios. And I was so moved by the story.
It was heaven for you.
I said,
coming from India, where you have to convince people why design is important.
Yes. And so when we came back, I said, the government will do what it does, and they have actually launched a design mark. But I also want to do something, so I launched a Designomics sort of a knowledge platform, We had a few, conferences. We even gave awards not to designers, but to business houses. Okay, business houses who'd use design and profited from it. Okay, so we did that, and then I also did a show for Bloomberg, where again did not interview designers. I interviewed business heads. Why they thought design was important, how do they implement it, and how do they profit from it. For example, Anand Mahindra spoke about the automobile design. Kumar, of course, spoke about the power of branding.
So automobile designing is more about engineering, right?
But design is a big word.
Big umbrella concept.
So for me, as a design thinker, I don't think of just my slice of the pie. I mean, I have a much bigger vision than just my business.
Design as philosophy, almost.
But design as a philosophy, design as an enabler.
As an enabler.
And you can design processes, you can design products, you can design, your brands, you can design, anything and everything.
So in
you
India,
can even design, leak-proof exams.
Yes, we can have a separate discussion on leak-proof exams. In India we have these stereotypes like this is a Marwadi company, right? And Marwadi companies are only interested in the bottom line, allegedly. It's interesting that Birla, which is actually a Marwadi company, was one of the first. Aditya Birla Group was one of the first to embrace this idea of designomics, what you call designomics, which was, very commonplace, widely accepted in a country like Japan, but not so in India. So, we are certainly bursting more than one stereotype here. that your biggest client was the Aditya Birla Group, a quote-unquote Marwadi company.
Yeah, that is true. But of course, so all these stereotypes, there are always exceptions to that. I can very confidently tell you that I work with many Marwadi clients.
I'm sure.
And
yes.
It's really amazing what kind of vision they bring to the table. I mean, of course, they're very sharp business people. But
as they ought to be.
They are not lacking for their vision or ambition.
Right.
In fact, I've noticed that very well exposed, very, very well educated, and good. I mean, I have only found them to be good people to work with. Not just Aditya Birla Group, but the other clients as well.
The idea here was to distrust stereotypes of all kinds.
Yes.
So, but you've made this journey as a woman. We are not gone into that aspect of it. And it's far more, as we know in our society, it's far more difficult for a woman to have made this journey as compared to a man who might have done the same thing. So, can you give us an idea of the kind of challenges you faced because you were a woman and for a large part of the time also a single mother, I believe. Yeah? So, with a daughter.
Yeah, so...
That must have been tough. That must have been tough.
Very, very tough. I mean, actually, it pretty much starts from childhood, because it's not like I was the rock star of my family. When my siblings were rock stars.
You were a girl child and a middle child.
I was a girl child, and I should have really been. I was not academically great, nor did I have the conventional good looks of what was expected from a Gujarati girl. And so I was a vast disadvantage there. So they didn't do much for my confidence, let me put it that way. I think that going to NID really helped me break away from...
That was your decision? How did you zero in on NID?
It was serendipity. I was planning to go to JJ School of Art, and I was so completely prepared to do that, but they didn't accept me. They didn't think I was good enough. And I was at a loss as to what on earth will I do when a friend's daughter said that she just got into NID. I said, hey, what's that? And then she gave me a brochure. I was very impressed, but unfortunately I was too late in applying, so I had to wait for a year. So then I went to Sophia Polytechnic, and I did commercial art foundation course there. I'm very happy I did, because it's just that because I learned a lot about art actually from there, art appreciation. So Anyway, so I think going to NID set me free from some of the notion zones I was in, that I was not, not worth anything. So because I discovered a creative aspect to me, and I really flourished in that. And then, of course, coming and working in Mumbai with an agency, I realized that there were a lot of people who actually believed in me, and that although I did not belong to a very conservative Gujarati, sort of a business family zone in their expectations, because I did not become a businesswoman at that time, nor didn't show any signs, and they didn't expect me to, right? They just expected me to become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that and get married eventually to a Gujarati businessman.
Correct.
None of which happened.
None of which happened.
So there's a lot that was expected, and there was no way they saw I could deliver on any of that. So therefore, it was not easy. So being a girl, middle child, and not the rock star was a big disadvantage. And then, even though I found my mojo from a career perspective, which of course has been the strong suit in bringing my confidence back in my life, it was not easy, because you still are battling emotional demons and things like that. And then, being the kind of person that I am I'm very committed to my dharma, karma, duties, so I would never give up on those things. So I would never cop out, which means that I just carried more responsibility in whether it is family or whether it is my work and so on. Which eventually I think it served me well. So when the time came when I really had to put my, I got married and found that I could really rely on myself to put food on the table. Couldn't really rely on my partner at that point in time. So I just had to roll up my sleeves and do it. So that's really how the whole thing started. And as I said, I'm very committed to all my duties. So whoever it is that is part of my family or part of my organization, I always make sure that I don't let them down. So that's a kind of a motivation which I have, which has kept me, driven to never cop out from work.
Because there must have been downs as well.
There have been incredible amount of downs.
It's not just one.
No, not at all. I have not.
Zooming up into the stratosphere.
It's never been a cakewalk for me. I mean, people might see it as that, and I know people think that, but it's not. My first office burned down. My first employee came to a burnt office. I literally lost everything, every pen I owned. I had to really start from scratch. Down the line, of course, there are personal, ups and downs as well. When, let's say, marriage doesn't work out, so all of that happens. You still have people to feed and people to pay salaries to and things like that. You have no time for yourself to grapple with all these difficult emotional situations as well. So
your child falls ill.
And the child falls ill. I mean, I literally had to move my office from South Bombay to the suburbs. At that point in time, I lived in the suburbs, in Versova, and I had to move my office to Andheri because I could stay close to my child, so that I could go home and have lunch with her, and then again at night, and get up early in the morning to send her off to school. So my days started very early and would end extremely late, But again, I just kept chugging along. It was very difficult from that perspective, and also because you're a woman, you have to work twice as hard, And when they say there are glass ceilings, yes, there are glass ceilings, So you have to just figure out a way of numbing yourself to these things, which I did.
But you seem to have gone beyond just numbing yourself. You seem to have broken many glass ceilings. So am I
I think one of the reasons why I started VGC the way it was because sometimes I would sidestep.
Hmm.
I would not try to change. Like, I was at that point in time a consultant to one agency, and there was no way I could have changed the way they worked. So I just sidestepped, made my own. So I like water around, meandering across terrains. So that's what I do. I know that I have to work much harder. I didn't know much about finance either, so a lot of people took me for a great ride. This is
That's a lot of women tell me this.
Yeah.
That they have this issue with
and yes,
money. They're not trained to sort of
we're not
manage
trained.
money.
Yeah. So, and also I'm a creative person. So it's difficult
that's
for
a double
me to.
whammy
Yeah, it's
for
a
you.
double whammy. And I was fairly trusting, and I still am. And so a lot of people took huge advantage of that. So the money that had actually was mine was lost. Then there were people whom
Stolen.
I employed.
Why are you saying lost?
Yeah, stolen. And then there were people. There was a time when my daughter fell, extremely ill. She had a life-threatening disease. So I had to take the eye off the ball, business-wise. So my own people took advantage of me and sank the business. Tried very hard to sink the business. And then this was around 2008 when the Lehman Brothers crisis happened. So it was everything happening at the same time. So there's a child and her health. There is your own people betraying you, and then the entire business world collapses.
A perfect storm.
It was a perfect storm. It was a perfect storm. This is exactly the phrase I used to think about those days. So, you don't then fall on the ground, you go deep down into a dark hole. So you literally have to crawl out. So there have been some angels in my life, few and far between, but they have. I have not had a partner, a business partner, nor have I had anybody investing in my business, nor have I borrowed money to this. Entirely a
Swayambhu,
one-woman.
as they say in Sanskrit. Right.
Okay, so it's just been literally one woman zone in business as well.
That's
as of course in my
amazing.
private life. Battling all of these situations is not easy. And of course I also had an aging mother living with me for a very long time.
Right.
And so everybody had to be looked after. And because I was so rooted in my Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned dharma and duty on a couple of occasions in this conversation. So how do you understand that? Because the concept of duty as in the Christian world is a little different from the concept of dharma in the Bhagavad Gita. So which sense are you looking at?
So I'm not that familiar with the Christian world's definition of duty. But dharma, I don't think is duty
At all, yeah. Therefore,
I think
that's why I was surprised when you
constrained.
heard duty, because
I was
it's
just
like a
trying to-
loose translation of dharma.
Okay, so I was really...
What's your notion of dharma? Let's understand that.
So
How
first
do you
let me just tell you how it started. I was really in my mid-20s. I, just found a book, Bhagavad Gita, opened it. It was Chinmayananji's translation. And there was just one phrase which was excerpted, one shlok which was excerpted out of the Gita and put in the preface. And I read it and I cried. I said, this is, it's like a homecoming for me. I am, which was basically sarva dharma parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham swam tarva papebhyo mokshachami ma shucha, which means drop everything, just all your dharmas. Now here dharma is translated into many things. Dharma is my process of, my dharma in the stage of life I'm in. Dharma, which means if I'm a child, my dharma is to study. My dharma is to, to pursue knowledge. At the later stage when I'm married, my dharma is to look after my, my people who are part of my family. So dharma evolves at different stages of your life. And of course it also dovetails into what your intentions are. For example, if I want to become a sannyasi, then my dharma changes, so things like that. So it morphs into different things, but basically it says there are certain things which you must do, in the zone that you are in, mentally, physically, situationally, which you have to perform. There's no way out of it, So Bhagavad Gita.
You can't cut and run, basically, is that?
Yeah, you can't stitch your own little smorgasbord of, things like this much I can do, this much I can't do. No, boss, this is what you have to do. And Bhagavad Gita teaches you, do your bloody best. No chalta hai stuff, And when you say do your best, the resignation has to come from within, not from outside, So that's something that I work at, Whilst I do work for the world, but it has to resonate with the moment of truth within me, So, the Karma Yoga part was a lifesaver for me. Okay, because to go through the kind of difficulties which life threw at me, which is that you do the best you can and do not dwell upon the expectations thereof. You don't have any expectations of the result of your action, because it just relieves me from so much anxiety and tension about what on earth will happen. I've done my best, here it is. It's an offering. It's an offering to a higher force. Call it Krishna, God, universe. People have different ways of addressing this these days. So, but for me it was Krishna, clearly. And then later I had a guru. I have a guru in my life who taught me scriptures, So there's a huge level of exposure to some of the bhakti scriptures, like Srimad Bhagavatam and so on, So then I was initiated into that, and I take that part also very seriously, And that was a whole universe. The entering into the spiritual world is a whole other universe which we are not prepared for. In a contemporary exposure world we live in, we are not prepared for that because our parents were not that aware of, So I've studied therefore quite a few zones here. For example, I do Sahaj Yoga, meditation, for example, Vedant. All of this are parallel part of the storyline of mine.
Would you say that has helped you to cope, or it's much more than that? It's not merely a coping mechanism or coping strategy. It's something that's guiding you.
No. It is a happy offshoot, of course, and very welcome to have that. But what this gives you is what is really your purpose in life. Your purpose in life is not just to be a mother, or just to be a wife, or just to be an entrepreneur, or just
or
to
a
be,
daughter, for that matter,
daughter, or whatever. That's part of a certain script. But is this even who you are? It leads you to ask questions about who really am I? Am I a human having a spiritual experience, or a spiritual being having a human experience? And that can completely, queer the pitch, right? Then I'm doing whatever I'm doing because it's my role and my dharma to do it. It's like I'm performing a certain role in this stage of life, but I must do it well because that's part of the deal. But this is not all of who I am. There is another purpose to this life.
So you mentioned that as you said, you are not the rock star in your family, but apparently, and very happily, that doesn't seem to have translated into some kind of permanent resentment. You have done your dharma duty by the people around you, your parents and so on. So you see that there is something that has changed generationally after that, that children, millennial and post-millennial children, tend to be far less tolerant of parental shortcomings. You think that there is something of that? Do you observe something of that nature?
Well, do I observe that?
Yes, around you.
I observe it across age groups. I observe it amongst the Gen Zs, the millennials, and I observe it amongst older people as well.
Older people, as in?
Well, your Gen X's, So people although I think they were more resilient because they were not brought up to be constantly indoors. None of us were, right? I mean, whether I did well in school or not, apart from that, there wasn't this kind of an obsessive parenting, nor did our parents try to become our friends. Okay. Today,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So, like trying to embrace this philosophy, or you must never criticize your child. You must never sort of reprimand them, in a certain way. So whilst, of course, you can't go to extremes in that, but you must never stop correcting them, because children are the first ones to turn around and say, but you should have told me, you're my parent, you should have told me not to do that.
But isn't that heads I win, tails you lose kind of situation? Because
it could become like that. It's a fair amount of discretion that you need to bring to the table as to, because we're living in a far more complex time than we did before.
It is, yes.
Peer pressure is off the charts. I mean, look at the exposure little kids have through their phones to the kind of world which we would never even have dreamt of. So in this complex world, there's definitely a lot of issues, and therefore, anxiety and kind of those mentally destabilizing circumstances which seem to be there everywhere, affecting the child, is a reality only because we have not grounded ourselves. According to me, now this is something which I strongly believe in, is that when you are when you have exposed yourself to the spiritual sciences that this land has, okay, it enables you to do many things. One of that is that it helps you deal with the world, okay, at various stages of life. It also helps you understand your role as a parent or understand your role as a child. So we seem to have given our children a carte blanche. Okay, the duties and so on are entirely with the children, with the parents. All of that gets remodeled. Also, I think traditionally, and I'm not talking about when we were kids. I think before that, the Gurukul systems, there were certain kinds of integrated educational modules which never divorced the spiritual aspects, from your daily life skills. Okay, so that helped people deal with situations. So critical thinking, finding ways out of a situation, not blaming others all the time. These are things which come from embracing those philosophies. So coming back to your question, how did I, how have I released myself from the bitterness which might have
been expected to come about?
Yeah. Honestly, I think because of all of this. Yeah, I see that there are a lot of good people, but they're not perfect people.
Nobody is,
right? And it's okay. I mean, whilst you may still not agree with the bad stuff, but you know that they weren't exactly coming from a place of enlightenment themselves. So there's a certain level of letting go that happens. And also you have defined your higher purpose in life, not to get along with everybody alone. That's just as I said, that's fine. Harmony in the world is important and it's desirable. It should be had. But my purpose in life is not just to rest at that. My purpose in life is to achieve something much bigger. At least for me, that's what I've outlined. So if that's my aim, then these things are never going to stop, right? I just recently wrote a blog that we're looking for perfection and permanence in a world which is not equipped to give you perfection and permanence.
Right.
And what is perfection, and what is perfection from your vantage point might be
might not be the same from someone else's point. So how do you see the future of your industry, especially in the light of AI?
Oh, I think, personally I find AI extremely exciting. I have always felt that new things, new technologies must be embraced.
You're not a Luddite.
Goodness no. And so I right now feel like a bit like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, experimenting and listening to other folk who've done such a great job, and I know a few people who have. Encouraging people. I mean, mind you, I'm encouraging young people to do more AI. You'd think it would be the reverse. So, but is it going to bring shifts and changes? Of course it will. Will it be disruptive? Yeah, sure. But there'll be new things that'll come up, and that's always been the case with anything new that has happened. This will probably be a little bit more disruptive and much more fast-paced than any other change we've seen. But what I'd also like, designers, people, in my industry to think of, is that don't just look at today's world of clients. Your clients are going to be different tomorrow. They are going to be embracing new technologies, and they will figure out what AI will do, and there will be a whole new kind of, sort of bunch of businesses that will come out, which you never dreamt would be around, because technology itself will give birth to a different kinds of businesses, and those will be your future clients, So I encourage people to do some future gazing, and I think we need to, as a company, we need to do much more of that. It will not happen immediately, but it's bound to happen.
So the future is exciting, is what you're saying.
It's always exciting. I'm always upbeat about everything. I'm just lucky to have that kind of a sunshine approach to life.
So it's always good.
It's always good to have.
Good to have, yeah. So we have a tradition, Preeti, on this show of ending with a poem or some lines from a poem or a song or even a shloka that kind of summarize your worldview or your outlook at this point in time. So...
So there's again a Bhagavad Gita shlok. Okay.
But you'll have to translate it at the end of it.
Okay. I just hope I remember all the pronunciations. And
no, that's all
words
right. That's all right.
Okay, so please forgive me if I've mispronounced something.
It doesn't matter.
So this one says, Uddaret Atmanatmanam, Atmanam Avasadaye, Atmaiva Atmano Bandhu, Atmaiva Ripunatmanam. So what this means is that arise, awake, lift yourself up, yourself, by yourself. Your Atma is your enabler. It will enable you. Just rely on your Atma to elevate you, to evolve you to the next level. You are your own best friend, and you are your own worst enemy. Nobody else is.
So on that wonderful note, thanks so much, Preeti Vyas, for this illuminating conversation.
Thank you. Gosh, we went all over the place on this one.
Yeah, but that's how it goes.
Thank you, Sujeet. It was wonderful chatting with you.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, and I think I really rambled on quite a bit, so I just hope
that was part of it. The idea was that one rambles and then the truth comes out of the rambling. Okay. See, this is not an academic presentation or a paper that you're presenting, right? So
yeah. Okay.
That the truth comes out of the mess. It's messy. Life is messy.
Yeah, like the lotus. That comes
like the lotus. Now, lotus has another connotation. We won't go into that.
Oh. Okay.